Hey guys, so before I lower the car down, I want to show you real quick some spot that we're going to be working on from, well, if you're familiar with a JZ, the oil drain goes in the bottom of the pan, right where my finger is right here. See this billet? This like AZ Performance Drift Motion sells these. It's a billet, little bolt-on flange. I can't really get to it very good. Can you there you go. And the dash 10 feeds onto it. Okay, so Drift Motion makes that part. It's really nice part, but they make even better part for something we're gonna look at right now. Also, right here, I have an AN cap on this. It's a M12 1.5 into the block to a dash 4 where my finger is right here. That is the feed for the turbo. A JZ turbo block has 2 of these feeds because it used to have 2 turbos. Usually people utilize the front one when they're feeding oil to the turbo. The back one is, I have it capped with just a bolt with a crush washer. Right here, it's a M12 1.5. Okay, so now I'm gonna lower the car and we're gonna look from above. But now that you've seen that flange, you understand what I'm talking about, then this next part I'm gonna show you from TURBOSMART that Drift Motion made all the adapters and all the fittings for a JZ. Now you understand where and how it all works, because I'm gonna show you on like the table on the bench over there, and then I'm not gonna have it installed in like at this exact moment because I need you guys to see it kind of in its like form when it comes, you know, I need you guys to see it all apart from the car and kind of understand it that way. Then we'll put it on the car and you'll see, you know, why it goes on the car, how it works, and you don't see why, but you'll see how it all goes together and it'll make more sense for you. So, lowering the car down. So, you can see some of that from up here too. Okay, so this is the feed. So this is where the high pressure oil comes out, and then there's that Drift Motion turbo drain flange that they make, and then this is where we need to feed the oil into the top of the turbo. Some turbos come with like a 40 thousandths restrictor or a 30 thousandths restrictor, and then some turbos do not, and you're hoping that restrict, let's say in this case, Borg Warner comes with the proper fitting with the proper restriction. So it's gonna work, and it has worked, but it's still like not a set pressure, and it might, like if your car's making, you have really good oil pressure and you have the proper oil pump, you're running the proper oil for the situation, and you're making, you know, 130 when you really rev it out, and then it still will probably work. But if maybe your pressure's low or high, you might have issues with your turbo, or you didn't have such a nice turbo as I do, and then you didn't buy a restrictor and you blow your turbo up. So TURBOSMART thought about all this. They're always thinking about really cool parts. Actually, before I show you, another reason why I love TURBOSMART stuff, not just the way they look, the way it perform, but they think like beyond, and they think outside the box, and they're always innovating new stuff. This is why I love using TURBOSMART stuff on my race car. Like, check out this blow-off valve right here. It's integrated into the Borg Warner EFR, and then you can tighten and soften, but it's a recirc valve at the same time as it bleeds off on the side. It's hard to see because it's dark, but see right here? You can see a little bit of the brass in there. It's hard to see, but so the piston that moves in and out is brass, and you can see a little bit of it right here, and then over down here it has 2 ports. So if you were to set it for soft, you're gonna easily hear it. But if you just want it to recirc and like use that bled off pressure and put it back into the system, you tighten it up and it's gonna do that. So TURBOSMART makes a couple different variations for the EFR. They also make a plain block-off plate if you just decide you don't want to run that blow-off valve and you want to use a different TURBOSMART blow-off valve. You could block that off. And then these are their hyper gates, which they're really accessible to like remove. Instead of having a bunch of little Allen bolts on the sides, it's just one key. Like you know, you get your spanner key thing and then your wrench and you take it off, and it's easy. Like one man can do this. You can service these at the track, check your diaphragm, make sure everything's working good by yourself if you have to. It's literally impossible to service other gates, other wastegate. That's why I choose these. They're just easier to use and they look good. And the guys at TurboSmart are gonna be really knowledgeable and be able to help you if you had questions or you wanted to send it back and have it tested. They can do that. I just sent these ones back. These aren't brand new. These are sent back ones from last season. They pressure tested it and replaced and rebuilt, so they're good to go. And then, okay, so moving on from that, we're gonna talk about the TurboSmart oil pressure regulator. So here it is right here. It's kind of connected with a bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna take it apart for you guys so you understand. This stuff is the kit that Drift Motion makes. So let me set this up on the tripod so I can use both hands. Okay, TurboSmart oil pressure regulator, and it says T40 on here. I'm assuming the T40 stands for 40 PSI because this is a part number, but it regulates right to 40 PSI. So this is an inlet, this is an inlet. It can go in either way, but you have to feed the turbo from one side or the other. So if whatever way works best for you, you can put the pressure in this side or this side, but whichever one it does, use the opposite end to feed the turbo. Okay, so then that's that, and then the bottom one is the drain, return to pan, so it like bleeds off the excess pressure. Like if you're at 100 PSI when you're flooring your car, you only need 40 PSI, so a lot of pressure is gonna come back out the middle one. So then this kit with all these lines is what Drift Motion came up with. So this is the Drift Motion flange, the oil pan flange with a -10 top. My hands are dirty because I work on a car, so don't worry about that. So it has an extra port in it, and that is to put this on here so that we can feed the bled off pressure back into the system. And so you can run this just right here like that, and then it feeds back into there. It's pretty cool. You'll have to decide in relation to how you want to do it before you tighten everything down. This is that M12 1.5 to a -4 fitting that goes in the block. So from that, you take oil pressure, high pressure coming out of the 2JZ motor, and you feed it into the fuel or the oil pressure regulator. So then we're gonna put this on here. I'm not gonna tighten it down, you get the idea. So this is going to the block, like so, bolted to the oil pan. There you go, there's your high pressure entering in, and whatever excess it doesn't use, it bleeds back into the flange, but I think it would fit like this actually, sorry. So then you have that like that. Then you come out of that and you need to feed the turbo. But then it's already 40 PSI, so you're all set that way. Then you add this guy into here. Well, let me get this in here, hold on. You could do this two ways. I'll show you this way first. So then you do this, and then you need to filter it too. So then you take this and you're gonna filter this. And this is an inline filter made by TurboSmart. So now if any crap comes through your oil system, it doesn't blow up the turbo, because turbos cost like $2,000 and up. Oh, some turbos are only $1,100, but like you get a top quality turbo, you want to keep it alive, so you're going to buy these TurboSmart accessories because, you know, it's insurance for your turbo right there. Okay, so this filter goes like here, or if you wanted to, you could thread this right into here and it will just thread right in. So let me show you that too. It's a -4 ORB fitting. ORB stands for O-ring boss. Okay, so it's feeding the high pressure into the regulator. Out of the regulator, it's being filtered. You do not have to do it this exact way. It depends on your car and how much room you have. And then you go, well, it all depends on your car too, but then you thread this in here, and this is what goes up and feeds the pressure into the top of your turbo. So there's a lot of information maybe to take in all at once, but this is gonna go down inside this area down in there, and it's gonna bolt down in there, and then this line, hold on, this line here is gonna go in and feed this, but everything will have, so it'll feed the turbo like that, and this is all bolted on down in there. But I'm going to do the install right now. I'm not gonna necessarily video the install because there's only one of me, no one else is here to hold the camera, and I need both of my hands to do that. So I'm gonna get to that, and once it's all installed how I like it, then I'm gonna show you guys. And this is really exciting because I don't know how many turbos you guys have gone through. I've hurt turbos before in the past, and it's pretty sad because this would have prevented it, but knowing now, looking back, I learned my lesson. So now I will always run this on any turbo application that I have because it's only a couple $100 extra, and it saves your $2,000, or even depends what turbo, you could have even almost a $3,000 turbo. So it's well worth the investment, and then it's peace of mind also at the same time. And let's say, worst case scenario, you blow your motor. So when you blow your motor, bits and pieces of metal go everywhere. If you did not have any of this, you would hurt your turbo. You might not think you hurt your turbo. You go through all the pain. Whoa, okay, so we ran out of memory card. So you go through all the pains of rebuilding your motor, but you kind of didn't really think that metal shards went into your turbo, but they did because you didn't have a TURBOSMART oil filter, or, okay, mainly the oil filter in this case, but say regulator, oil filter. But you didn't have the filter, and then you didn't think like, well, I better take apart my turbo and rebuild that and clean it all out. You just thought, oh, it's just one small feed line, nothing went in there. But in reality it did. Then you put your old turbo on your fresh motor, you start it up, and you put a bunch of crap that got into the turbo back into your fresh motor, and then right out of the gate you start messing up everything, like bearings and your cams, because like cam caps, everything where it run, like I don't know what motor it would be, but bearings, everything gets messed up, and then rings, whatever, wherever it gets, and then you blow up a new motor or get close to it, or you injure that new motor. So just like we need an oil filter for the oil, we also need an oil filter for the oil that feeds the turbo. It's just smart. And if we were really on top of our stuff, you'd have another inline oil filter before it goes to the oil cooler, because if you blow up a motor and that oil that was going through your oil cooler now has chunks of stuff in there, that like it's hard to clean out an oil cooler like completely, because it just has all the tubes, and you could try for a while. Yeah, okay, you guys get the idea. So now let me install that, and then we will get right back to this. When we come back, I'll have that installed and we can check out how it goes. Also, I don't know if I'll be able to get to it today, but I have that new fuel pressure regulator. It's the new design that matches the wastegates. I think that's really cool. Like, pretty much like a mini version of that wastegate. Super cool. Nice anodized black with the billet aluminum ring. I'm gonna try to, this doesn't just bolt into the same thing, so I have like a pretty cool setup on my car where I had made a mount, and then it kind of like puts the regulator on display here, which I really love, but I don't want to not be able to like place that there. But this one uses a clip on the bottom, and it has its own mounting tab, which the mounting tab for this one didn't necessarily bolt right to this little setup I had welded in here years ago. So I had cut and welded this guy, so I'm gonna do the same, and then I took it to powder coat so it was all black, the little bracket. But what I'm gonna do is kind of cut the back of this off and then weld it to that existing bracket, but then it can place this regulator exactly how this other TurboSmart one is placed, the FPR 1200, but this is the new version of the 1200. And then I'll switch all my little fittings, because see how this this fitting has an adapter to an MPT to a -4, so I'll do that for this, and then I'll do this one to the -4, so then I can still use all my braided lines that I had here that have been working great for a couple years. So that's on the list to do too. I don't know that I'll be able to get to that exactly today, but when I do get it in, I'm gonna show you guys. First on the list is to get this oil pressure and filter in the car. So let's get to that, and then we will show you guys when it's done. All right. Okay guys, this is taking a little bit of time. I had to set everything up just right. On the flange into the block, it still has the drain. Then you see coming out of the drain on the little MPT fitting that Aaron from Drift Motion had integrated for the drain for the fuel or the oil pressure regulator. It's now sitting right there next to the flange. Then it has these 90 degrees fitting going up and into the block, feeding the oil pressure regulator. Then I haven't made the feed line, so then I have the other 90 fitting. Right now it's facing down. I'm going to point it like up this way, and then let's move back away so you can see turbo drain coming down. I installed this Inconel shield. I run this guy right here. It sits like this. That helps my alternator, so I have to run that. It's kind of all jammed in the same area, but see how I have a lot of Inconel stuff going on? That keeps all the heat away from my alternator and the heat inside of where it came from. So anyways, I'm probably gonna run the turbo oil feed right. It'll kind of like maybe use either a straight coming out of this fitting there, or maybe like a 45, and it'll run right along the turbo drain and come up here and go in there. But right after that, I need to do the oil filter. So here's my setup from last year. I ran this inline oil filter from TurboSmart, but we're replacing it this year with a new one. So I'm gonna get this all set up. Might be able to cut down one of these hoses and change it, because the Drift Motion kit was only set up for pretty much perfect bolt-in for your car. If I'm gonna try and use it, we'll see. If it doesn't have the right length though, I might change my line. But it pretty much, the Drift Motion kit, Aaron thought of everything, so it's gonna, everything should just bolt in and go to your turbo. So I'll mock everything up with the Drift Motion kit and show you guys. But if I might need to change something because my manifold has so much stuff going on, and then to go around that Inconel heat shield. So if I do, I'll change it, but if not, Drift Motion kit bolts right in even to the race car. It will also bolt into a street car. So it's pretty cool to see how Aaron developed this whole kit and how everything just kind of works really easily. So let me keep going on this and finish it, and then show you guys the finished product. Just takes a little longer than I thought it would, but alright, talk to you guys in a bit. So check that out, all in place. Looks pretty cool. That's the whole Drift Motion kit with the TurboSmart OPR on there. And then we ran it inline here, so it didn't, because it got too close to the oil pan here, it was interfering. So now we ran it inline, and then Drift Motion and made this straight to a 90. Whoa, welding. Yeah, Joe's here. He's doing some welding. So we had to modify the whole exhaust, because, well, that intake manifold we got from Doc Race, everything looks similar visually. When you bolt it in, nothing's the same. Turbo manifold. Oh, yeah. that turbo manifold we got from Doc Race. Said intake manifold, did not mean that. So I had just made this pipe here. I redid this charge pipe real quick. And then Joe's redoing the downpipe mating surface to the exhaust real quick. We just had to change because it basically, the exhaust manifold was like 1 inch higher, maybe 3/4 of an inch, not a full inch. So nothing lined up anymore. That means the dump tubes aren't gonna line up. They're not gonna stick through the hood the same. So we're gonna be switching that next. So we'll be getting to that. But let me finish this and then I'll show you the overhead view of how the TurboSmart whole setup works. And it's really cool that it all fits with all this excess space underneath the exhaust manifold, so it's not really, not even hot. I mean, it's probably a little bit hot, but it's not in a bad area. Okay, let me get back to that and I'll show you after we lower the car back down. Okay, so Joe's still welding. So we are doing it from the bottom. So we're in there. Kind of can see it from this side, not that well. Oh, there we go. So you can see it right there. And then kind of runs along the bottom of my Inconel shield to the TurboSmart filter. And then it runs up underneath, kind of near the drain, turbo drain, and then up around and feeds the turbo. I'll show you from the top view in a second. That charge pipe is in the way now though for full-on view. So overall we have a lot going on in that area now compared to some setups that don't have any of that stuff. But to be honest, it's still not that much. I can reach my arm in there, like not that big of a deal. Here we go, my arm's in there. So that will save your turbo, so you need to get one of those. So if you love your turbo as much as I do, and you name your dog Turbo, then you need to get one of those TurboSmart oil pressure regulators with the oil filters. And then if you run a JZ, then you need to buy the drift motion kit, because that was pretty easy to install, and every hose that drift motion supplied just bolted right into my setup, and it will bolt into your setup too. And then it was like, I'd say like a 2-hour install and we're good to go and done. The last thing I'm going to do that you guys do not need to do, but it's a race car, so I'm going to cover this hose with some of that heat shield from PTP turbo blankets, similar to this stuff here, the fire sleeve, and then I'll be done with that whole setup. I covered the upper hose already, but I did not get a chance to cover this lower one, so I'm gonna do that right now. And then, if you're wondering why there's another exposed AN line right here, this one is for my crank like the crankcase breather drain. I'm gonna also finish that line right now while I'm down here, and then cover that with some PTP fire sleeve. And meanwhile, Joe's welding the exhaust. It's done, huh? Yeah. We just MIG weld the exhaust because why TIG weld it? We're gonna smack it on the ground probably like 300 times a season, so just don't waste our time. And then I get it ceramic coated. Alright, moving on. Talk to you guys in a bit. Alright, so a view from above, guys, on the TurboSmart setup. You can kind of see in there. There it is. So it's way down there. Comes up. The filter's down. Well, the filter kind of rides right behind this area. And this is the feed line, and it's coming up, and I wrapped it in the fire sleeve. And there you have it. That's the completed TurboSmart oil pressure. I'm pretty behind schedule. Still gonna do the fuel pressure regulator, the wastegates and the dump tubes. We finished the downpipe. Then we've taped this in place. We don't want to rivet it on yet because Renee's gonna wrap the car. So tomorrow we're gonna figure out dump tubes and maybe make the bracket for the fuel pressure regulator. And then we have some rear window stuff to do, but moving forward. And then get a little bit further. Oh, Joe, maybe we should do that really quick, try and make that bracket like you were saying, and just weld it, and then we'll take it to powder coat, huh?
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna do fuel pressure regulator right now. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Okay, so what else? Come on, focus, Kim. Okay, so what I was trying to tell you guys is, here's the other fuel pressure regulator. Has 2 Allen bolts on the bottom. Good design, but will not work and is not compatible with this design. That's the other one. And that one has a little clip on the bottom. So that's cool, but not gonna do what we want. But we want these 2 pieces. See how it's been welded on before? So our plan was to cut it off right here somewhere. You might be able to just do that, huh? Yeah, maybe just lay it over the back and weld it on. We'll just
yeah, we'll have
off.
to cut that part off.
And then I'll take it to powder coat, so you guys will know, I'll know, but it won't look bad. Wait, so it needs to face this way.
It's interchangeable, so you can.
But okay.
Yeah.
So it is the same. Okay. All right. We got to do some cutting and welding. Talk to you guys soon. Okay, so we made a bracket that utilizes theirs, but ours, and now it fits to the car. Oh, focus. You guys can see it, right? Hopefully. Okay, here's the new Here's the new fuel pressure regulator that looks like a wastegate, mini wastegate. Come on, camera. There we go. So I put all the fittings in there so I can run all the AN lines. 2 of them have caps on them still. But there we have it. And then it'll mount in the exact same spot. Here, Joe could maybe show you guys real quick. So it'll mount exactly how we had it on display before. But first and most importantly, we need to get this powder coated. So I'm gonna take this to powder coat in the morning because we can't have like this.
Stinky looking object.
It's gotta be black powder coat. And I also needed to get this charge pipe powder coated. So both of those off to powder coat tomorrow. And then we will install that stuff probably in 3 days. But those are the fresh parts from TurboSmart for this season. And then we will put them to the test on the dyno, hopefully next Monday or Tuesday. All right, guys, we gotta go sleep a little bit because we gotta be back here and work in the morning.
Yeah.
Later, guys.